Hey guys, if you listen to the show on Apple or Spotify and you haven't done so yet, please hit the follow button and give the show a 5-star review. Everything you watch, read, or listen to is manipulating your energy. You're being lied to about the world you live in. You're being lied to about your history. You're being lied to about who you really are. Question everything. All right, so what is biochar?
Biochar is pyrolyzed carbon. Pyrolyzation is the process of heating something past its smoke point in an oxygenless environment, or an oxygen, like a low oxygen environment. So this is a process of the pyrolysis process I would think was first, essentially cultivated by the alchemists. Alchemists would have these vessels called an anthenor, and they would put the anthenor inside of their furnaces or their kilns. And the anthenor is, just think of like a very heavy ceramic vessel that would have a heavy lid. And they would do their reductions, what they would call their negretto phase of the different things that they were trying to purify. And they would go ahead, like say they wanted to purify leaf of oak for whatever reason. They would take a leaf, they would put it in one of these anthenors and then put that inside the kiln. And then, after a very quick period of time, all the off gassing would occur. And then you would end up with a quote unquote carbon copy of what you started with. That's where that term came from, is that you would have a completely leaf shaped thing that was pure carbon, but all of the volatiles would have off gassed. Well, that leaf at that point would be considered biochar.
Is that different from biomass?
Biomass can be converted into biochar. Biology, the word organic, all these things are just referring to things that grow and are made out of carbon. And so pretty much anything that grows or has a life cycle upon its death can be considered biomass. And then that biomass can be heated in an oxygen-free environment to create biochar.
I heard you say something before, like it creates like these little tunnels almost in the when you create biochar, and it creates like a home or something for this biodiversity. Is that pretty close?
Yeah. So, a lot of our biology has to deal with the microbiome, which just means the really small biology, the really small living things. And so we have all these critters around us that we can't see, hence the name micro. And some of them are beneficial and some of them are not. And the problem with bad soil is one, it can't store a lot of biology. And two, the type of biology it attracts is not beneficial to the things that are beneficial to humans, right? So a lot of times, like when you see like toxic waste spills, or you see agricultural land that's been over-tilled or over glyphosated, wherever you see a lot of abuse, you'll see that the biology of the actual soil gets very little. What you want to do is create a beneficial home for all these microbes. And biochar is by far the best medium for the beneficial microbes. And the reason why is because the biochar is very, very stable. It has the capacity. It not only has, like, I forget what the carrying capacities are, but it's like astronomically higher than anything else. And what that means is per like cubic millimeter of it, it like holds like millions of times its weight in both water and in microbes and all the rest of it. It's really remarkable stuff. And the reason why is because of its porosity. It has all, I probably use the term microcavules because I love that term, microcavule. You'll find pretty much anything that's dealing with the transference or structuring of water is dealing with microcavules. And so what occurs is it's actually the perfect mechanism. I think God created this place, all the living creatures primarily were made out of carbon, oxygen, and hydrogen. That's pretty much all of it. And then every, the cycles that we go through in nature, there's probably some times where, let's just say that there's a reset here and there. And that reset converts all that biomass that's been laid down into pure carbon. But that particular carbon is perfect in growing other things. It's like because any water that goes over it structures immediately. And whenever you get structured water, you get the highest download of information from the overall, from the realm per se. And that's why people are very big into structuring water. And that's why they're very big into biochar also, is because biochar not only has that micro porosity that I was talking about, that all the effective microorganisms like, because of that porosity, water, when it goes over it, the water self-structures into exclusion zone water. I've had a couple talks with the gentleman that coined the term exclusion zone. I'm forgetting his name, Dr. Gerald Pollack, I believe it is. And if any of you want to read The Fourth Phase of Water, you can see what I'm talking about. When water moves over a semi-permeable membrane, it self-structures. It's almost like God made it that way. Well, biochar is the most porous organic, substance that we know of. I'm sure there's more porous, but within the scope of this conversation. And so the water moves over that, it self-structures, it turns into exclusion zone water, and exclusion zone water is like a battery. So immediately the voltage potential of that medium then increases, and it's getting the crystalline information from source at that point, which sounds like it's like the perfect thing. It becomes the perfect medium to grow organics in.
So, can you list some of the benefits of biochar? I mean, you already listed some. I read your Substack and I saw some that you listed in there. It removes toxins. It blocks EMFs. It increases plant yields. What are some of the other benefits of biochar?
Geez, I mean, you could go into secondary and tertiary benefits of all those things that you just brought up. So how does it eliminate toxins? Like what other benefits are that? So we live in two mediums of fluids. The fluid that we breathe, air is a fluid. A lot of people don't know that. Has tons of things that from our body perspective are considered free radicals. And free radicals, the best way I could say it is a free radical is a substance that steals energy from you. The only thing that makes you sick is the fact that your energy drops below a certain point. So we're made in God's image, and we're made in a very, very resilient way. And the thing that causes sickness and disease and all the rest of it is that our energy drops below a certain threshold. Well, the cool thing with biochar or pyrolyzed carbon is that it has this property to it called diamagnetism. And diamagnetism is like this unidirectional energy. And you could say when it comes in contact with a free radical, you could anthropomorphize a free radical and say that it's like the most chaotic person you know. If you've ever been around super chaotic people, they're like, they'll just sap your energy. Well, that's what a free radical is, right? In your system. They're just pulling energy out of everything. And I'm way oversimplifying it. Just so I don't want people to come out of the woodwork and wave their finger at me. It's just an easy way to think about it. So biochar just goes, hey, free radical, come over here, hang out. And it sucks it into itself, and now the free radical is no more, right? So it kind of gives your body a reprieve from all these, let's just call it these chaos clusters that we absorb all the time. So that's one way to think of the detoxification. It's an amazing cleaner. I have to say, because it's a detoxifier and because it does absorb free radicals, it has the ability to clean things really, really well. Like it's kind of ironic. Within my chat group, I created something. Were you ever into South Park, Brad?
Yeah, yeah.
Did you ever see the South Park the movie?
No, I didn't. I never did.
Okay, so South Park the movie, they have this, instead of they're making fun of actors, and they're making fun of part of the movie is that they're actually making fun of people that do show acting, right? And so they do a spoof on the show, like the Broadway show Rent. They do a spoof and call it Lease. And they have this song in there where they're like, everyone has AIDS. AIDS, AIDS,
Oh
AIDS,
yeah.
AIDS, 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 AIDS. And so I did a spoof within my community where I was like, hey, everybody, I have this incredible face cleaner. It's going to detox your face. I'm calling it Black Face AIDS. And people loved it. Like, I actually sold quite a bit of it. And it's really funny because you put it on and you literally have blackface, but it cleans your pores, right? It totally like cleans your skin and everything. And so I thought that was really funny. So it's an excellent cleaner. It's an excellent detoxifier. I would say that probably one of the best benefits of it that people don't talk about enough is that it's super stable for your soil. So one of the biggest problems with soil today is that you end up losing it, especially if you're in an area where there's lots of rain. And say you just planted like normal, crabgrass or whatever for your lawn and stuff like that, your yard's going to shrink because the soil is going away. None of that stuff is good for soil biology, right? So when you keep adding stable carbon to your soil, one, you increase the type of microbes that are able to help stabilize the other native soils, but then it also helps the right plants to grow that will also keep your land stable. So those are some other benefits other than what you listed.
Are there steps to make it yourself? If I wanted to make some at the house, are there common household items I can use and things? Because I got pine trees in my yard. I have all kinds of things around me that I can use. Is there a simple way to make it that everybody can make at their home?
Yeah, there's been a method out there for a very long time called the top loading updraft gasifier. I was just speaking with another group this morning about gasification, because the byproduct of gasification is biochar. So a lot of off-grid people, a lot of people that want to produce their own syngas and want to like live off-grid and things like that, they know about gasification, and in a very rudimentary way. Like when you look at your fireplace or you're outside at a fire pit and you're seeing the fire, that's like very inefficient wood gasification. Because what you're seeing burn isn't the wood itself, the part that has all the carbon and nitrogen. What you're seeing are the gases coming off of it that are burning. Well, there's this thing that looks like a modified fire pit called a top loading updraft gasifier, which essentially you throw a bunch of wood in it, and the way it's ported and vented is that you light it from the top and it burns down. And you get, I would say by volume from the tests I've done, you get about 50% of your biomass that you have left over in it is biochar. The other part of it is charcoal. You get a little bit too much white ash. It allows a little bit too much oxygen in to get like the pure biochar. But that's a very easy way that you can get biochar if you're handy, if you have barrels around you. It just takes, if you can find some 55-gallon barrels and you can look up, there's hundreds of videos on YouTube how to make a top loading updraft gasifier. There's the pit method. I think the pit method for the most part is about the tests I've done. I did most of my tests with the pit method, I have to say, in the tropics where it was very wet. So that was probably affecting the effectiveness of the pit method. And I was at that time, I was only getting like 20 or 30% effective what I had left over as biochar. The most effective way to make your own biochar is with what I call the rocket retort. It's my invention. And it's essentially, if you've ever seen a rocket stove, the thermal riser aspect of it. About 15 years ago, I just retrofitted a thermal riser for a rocket stove. I went ahead and retrofitted it. Instead of using some sort of insulation, I used biomass as the insulator on that. And I cooked and I made, I think some of the first videos I ever put up on YouTube were essentially me like burning a hole through my old dome, because what I used as my insulator was coconut shell. Coconut shell has a ton of oil in it. And so when this thing got up to heat, like I burnt through a grate. So that tells you how hot the flame was. It was a blue flame that shot up a good 4 or 5 feet. And it was an experiment. Like I had no idea it was going to work that well. And so ever since then, I've been making these rocket retorts, and I'm having actually a shortage now of materials. Like the barrels that I used to make them out of, they're very expensive now. So I'm having a company in Mexico fabricate some demos for me, and we'll see when they get here if they work well. But I've hand fabricated those for people for the last few years. I've probably sent out about 100 units, not that much. But like I said, it's very hard to find the actual barrel size that I need. So, and people can look online for rocket retorts, especially on Instagram. You could see a bunch. I have like probably 50 videos on a rocket retort.
Is there a certain type of wood that you have to use to make biochar?
No. I've done it with everything from rice hulls to leaves to wood cutoffs of pine, hardwoods, mahogany, hickory. Like I've pyrolyzed bamboo. Like I think that's probably one of my most, like, people like really like talking about bamboo. And so showing the bamboo biochar, people seem to like that a lot. It could have just been the keyword bamboo that people gravitated towards, but either way, you can, as long as it's dry. Remember, if it grew at one point, it's full of carbon. So like friends of mine, I Grateful Harvest Seeds, I did a trade with them for organic seeds. I made them a full kiln. And in that kiln, he actually pyrolyzed bones. And like, cause he has a full farm. So like whenever they slaughter animals and stuff like that, he has like bones all the time. So from the previous season, he had all these dried bones, and he was able to pyrolyze bone. And so it's really cool. You can pretty much pyrolyze anything that has grown at some point.
It's not beneficial to use like coniferous trees that are naturally diamagnetic?
I would think we spoke about this the other day. Heat changes the actual the magnetic traits of things. Yeah. So I actually have to say, though, speaking of pine tree, one of my favorite chars I've ever made is from pine bark. So we've harvested 2 like really large pine trees. I would say the diameter of them was easily a 5-foot, 6-foot diameter. So these trees were older growth yellow pine. And I harvested 2 of them, and I took the bark of that. And this last season, pretty much all of my biochar was from pine bark, and it's excellent. It's excellent biochar.
I would imagine that the bark, you know how it's very peely, you could kind of peel it off. I would imagine that kind of stuff is more beneficial to creating a home for this, these micro, this biodiversity, I guess you could say. So
You're
I so,
totally right. You're totally right because it acts like shale. Because when you look at the pine bark, it's just layer after layer after layer after layer after layer. And then when you pyrolyze it, the reason why I love it as a biochar is like you just take your hand and good biochar, you know it is because when you squeeze it, it sounds like fiberglass. It's like all the little, it sounds like little shards of glass are breaking. And with the pine, it was exactly that. It was like so perfect.
I was under the impression that you could use pine tree wood, burn it, and then pour urine on top of it, and
Mhm.
then mix it with like a manure, and then
Yeah.
cover it and sort of let it sit for 3 months or 6 months or whatever it is.
Yeah, so the big thing is when you first do your cook, you end up with all this hot char, right? You don't want to use your urine or your fluid that has effective microorganisms to do the squelching of the reaction. You just use regular water for that. So once all your biochar is down to its regular temperature, down to a normal temperature and it's set. Usually the next day is like when I give it the effective microorganisms. And urine is incredible for that. Urine will attract all the organisms, microbes that your body actually needs. I think it's kind of cool. You know how like dudes will just like go outside and pee, you know?
Yeah.
Especially when you live out in the country. I think God really created us that way because our urine actually attracts the microbes that our body needs. So that there's something to like marking your territory, right? Well, the cool thing is if you mark your territory with a biochar that is super stable, there's a whole thing that I'm going to release to the world about like actually how to really set the jurisdiction of your property by using a combination of, this your blood plasma along with the the biochar in this very specific grid pattern to your property, and you're kind of marking your territory but in a permanent way. And this is kind of funny because this is like a spiritual boundary layer too.
Yeah, that's where I was going to go with it. I was going to ask you that where can you create like a spiritual boundary with this and keep negative energies out?
I think you can. I think you can actually really, really, create the jurisdiction between you and your creator. Um, I think the whole thing with the Lodial title is like actually set up in the spirit kingdom. Yeah, but the thing is, the spirit kingdom really wants to know that you know boundaries and know how to create boundaries. And so if you're going to say you say Jesus Christ is your Lord and Savior, right? And you dedicate your land to the Lord and Savior and that that you're acting in dominion with them. If you're going to do that, the legal designation of your property doesn't necessarily mean much because the legal designation is dealing with a corporeal entity. So what you actually want to do as a living man is you want to walk the boundary of your property praying, and you really want to go ahead and plant like the cardinal points, like the corners of the property, however your property is. Like there's all different shapes of property. And as you pray and like do this internally for a while, like the gentleman that shared it with me was like, you want to do this for at least a month, like every day, same time, just build the pattern of you walking your perimeter of your property, praying, giving it to God. And then you do this system. And I'm not ready to release the whole Monty yet because there's some specifics to it. But let's just say biochar infused with your blood plasma is a very good way, especially at the corners of the property, to like really designate, okay, everything that's within this perimeter is, as the monasteries would say, this is all for God. You essentially create your land as a monastery and you dedicate it to God's will, essentially. And this gives the property as a whole a real spiritual dominion and protection over those that would want to take it.
Do you think you could do that just to yourself and, and say, I put this parameter 25, 30 miles, 40 miles out if you were to set, a boundary like that?
Yeah, it's kind of interesting. The more I learn from Cal Washington and others of his ilk is that like the spiritual world is very legalistic. So if you make a claim, it wants specifics, it wants definitions. So a lot of people, they're not aware of their boundaries. Like you say, okay, me, I am one, the spirit realm wants to know, do you even know what I am means? Do you even know what your perimeter actually is? Like when you say your body, is it only your body? Can like I take your mind? Can I take your emotional body? Can I take your, it, because you got to understand those that would want to take your will away from you, they're evil, and evil doesn't play by the same. Evil loves to use people's ignorance against them,
Yeah.
And so the more specific you can be in making these declarations, like, there's line after line after line that says pray without ceasing. And I really think that pray without ceasing is really like being conscious of your environment and like literally always claiming that you're in jurisdiction with your creator. And things like doing these biochar sinks of carbon. Because the irony is, I'm not one of these people that believes numbers or shapes are bad, right? But there's a lot of people that say, ooh, 666 is the number of the beast. But yeah, I've seen older writings that say it's 616, None of that makes any difference to me because I'm giving it all to God anyway. This is going to God. So what you do is carbon on a molecular level is 666. It's actually a perfect cube, and that's what we were talking about before. It's actually a hypercube. And so it's so ironic. I think the powers of evil out there have convinced good people to shy away from that as to not use it to their benefit. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
It's just like, no, don't use that. That's evil. Don't do that. That's evil. While they're using it on their side the entire time. You know what I'm saying? So for me, I know all the benefits of carbon. There's I think in geology terms, when you look at the stratigraphy of the world, all 7 continents that we know of have this beautiful line of biochar. And it's not charcoal; it's actual biochar, which all indicates that there was there has been a reset in the past of plasmatic proportions. Let's just say. I have to remember that plasmatic proportions. That's a good thing to say. So that biochar layer on all 7 continents shows that there's been times where God said, okay, this is done. Cooks everything down, got the perfect carbon, everything builds up from then again. And this carbon in and of itself, any of us can make, and it's literally, there's endless tons of biomass. In fact, you go to any landfill and they have those little caps that have like fire coming out of them and stuff like that. They're doing the off-gassing of the biomass. It's all everybody's yard clippings and their trash from their house and all that stuff. As it sits in that landfill, it's shrinking and it's off-gassing. They have to light a match. And burn off the gas because there's just so much biomass to get rid of. And so I really like to use my yard clippings. I like to use like things that are easy for me to get. The fall time here, all the leaves fall off of everything except for the coniferous stuff. And I can convert all of that into biochar.
If there was a layer of biochar, like you said, from a former reset, why isn't the whole world just full of vegetation and green and abundant life? And because like you still have deserts and you still have regions where it snows a lot and things like that. If because you and I talked the other day, and there's like terra preta in the Amazon rainforest, right? And it created this immaculate, perfect ecosystem, I guess you could say, because of the terra preta. And terra preta is biochar, right?
Terra preta, yes.
And so what I'm asking is if there's a layer like that all around the world, why isn't there more vegetation in places like the desert?
I think I'm of the opinion that we're in the little season, like we're post the return of Jesus Christ. And so, it talks about in Revelation, things like that, like a third of the earth will be scorched, all these things, the oceans will turn salty and look like wine, all these different things that I think we're in that zone. The earth obviously isn't as coherent or as abundant as it once was. People don't live as long. People are not as nearly as big. People aren't as smart. There's like, biblically speaking, like, yeah, people living 900 years, imagine what you would like, where you would be. We live maybe 85 years, and like, half that time we're like physically incapacitated. Imagine living 900 years and having like 500 good years just to crush. You're going to build cathedrals, you're going to build all this great stuff. You're going to be awesome, right? So right now we're in the time right before the great white throne judgment, from as far as I can see. So pretty much this is the time that everything is here. Like, everything's mixed. Everything is kind of chaotic. And so you have like the rest of the dead have like showed up so that they can like choose Christ. You have all the demons are out, all the Nephilim are trying, all of it. It's all here right now. And that's why we have the internet. That's why we have this like endless stream of information that can go out, right? And I think, to answer your question specifically about the biomass that was burnt everywhere, is that certain areas of the world were cursed. It said very plainly in the Bible, if you didn't pay tribute to Jesus Christ, he ruled with an iron staff, man. You're going to be plagued with no rain. And like a third of the earth, it has no rain, right? And if you look at those areas of the world that are plagued with no rain, they have a high proportion of people that are anti-Christ. I'm not saying they're of the devil, but they are anti the story of Jesus Christ. And I'm not just saying that's a story. I'm just saying from their perspective, they're not into it, right? And so I think right now we're just living in a very small scale of where everything has showed up again. And it's just that time where things can actually kind of be repurposed and people can make their choices. They can make their free will choice. And yeah, it's the sorting period before the great white throne judgment. That's sort of where I'm at with things.
We were talking the other day. So, for those who don't know, we had to re-record because we had some connectivity issues. But you mentioned how the cube kind of opens up and reveals a specific symbol, right?
Yeah. Yeah. The hypercube, when you look at the profile of it, is the Star of Rephaim, which has also been known as like the what is that symbol? The Star of David. But it's actually not the Star of David. It's the Star of Rephaim. And so that particular shape is flown by our friends that are they is into the sun god of El. And that particular aspecting is very interesting because the 6 is the beehive, and the big part of the beehive is like the hexagon formation. For those of you that are just listening, when you look at a hexagon, it's 6-sided, right? And that's those 6 sides create this very specific type of polygon that you can link to all other, 6-sided structures and 5-sided structures. But if you wanted to make a flat sheet, and it's very, very stable. And this is like part of what makes carbon, when you pyrolyze it, so stable is that when all the what we call the volatiles, all the oils and fluids come out of something that's organic, you're just left with all these hexagons. And all these hexagons kind of link up to each other. And it just is hyper stable. And it's like, I think what's analogous to that is the beehive, because when you look at a beehive, you have, millions of drones in a hive, or depending on the size of the hive. But let's just say the ratio of drones to the queen bee is quite exceptional, right? So all those hexagons are there to store the work done by the drones, and where the queen lives in like her little queen's chamber, right? It's very analogous to how things are working at a molecular level with this notion of the Saturnian hypercube, which when you look at the profile of it's a hexagon. The Star of Rephaim is the six-sided. I think it's encoding that you're going to do all the work. It's pointing the finger at people saying, "Yeah, you work for me. I'm not the worker. You work for me." And I think that's why people have said that encodes a slave state, or that we're in a slave dimension, or we're on a slave world. I think that's what the people that are trying to do all that stuff want us to believe. But it's not really true. This realm that we're in is God's realm, and it's infinitely more complicated than just that. And so I tell people all the time, don't put me in a box. Like, cause that's like when you turn a box, when you turn a cube on its side, you get the hexagon. And it's like, none of us, we're organic, we're curved. That's part of the reason why I build domes, is like, our bodies are like, when a baby is gestating in a mother, her belly turns into this beautiful bulbous, it looks like a half of an egg. It's just this beautiful thing. You never see a square belly. You never see like a cube with a gestating baby, And so there's something to the curves and the shapes of everything that I think reductionists don't really, the people that are kind of, I would say, brainwashed by the hypercube and are brainwashed by those that would have power over you, they kind of like want to put everything in a box because that makes them feel secure. And I go the other way. I go, you can't put us in a box, and that's actually what makes us secure. And Saturn has this Kronos, the god Kronos. I don't look at the, BS billiard ball, we're flying through space science anymore at all. I've gone back to the Christian alchemical way of observing the heavens. And all the heavens mean in this regard is that which is above us. That which is like, heaven is above, hell is below, right? And there is an up and there is a down. And Saturn is just this light that we see in the sky. And if you focus in on it with a P900 camera or P1000 Nikon, you'll see at certain times of the year, it has this shape that semi resembles a cymatic pattern of a hexagon. It's not like what NASA shows you where, oh, our Voyager's flying over Saturn and look at that perfect hexagon. No, it's all animations. And by the way, for those people out there that don't know me, like I literally, one of my good friends worked for JPL when they had the actual contract from NASA to process all of their quote unquote space photos. And he told me flat out, they're all animations, all of them. So like, don't believe the hype people. So in that, and by the way, when he told me that, it wasn't like flat earth was a thing. It was like 10 years before the flat earth thing came out. So don't think this was just somebody that was trying to ride the wave of popularity or anything like that. So when you look, I've actually had a chance to look through a P900 camera at Saturn when Saturn was in, I believe, perigee, which means close to us. It's either perigee or apogee. I always forget. But it was very close to us. It was very prominent in the sky. And we zoomed in on with my friend's P900. And it looks like this orb that's like blinking, right? It's doing this thing. And you get like a little glimpse of like a hexagon on it. And so I think the alchemists had a capacity to see in a better way than we think, and they kind of linked that to the Saturnian god. Well, the way they termed it, it was Chronos. Saturn and Chronos were of similar, if not correspondent, energies, and Chronos is that energy that rules time. And it makes sense because we live in a temporal realm. And that's why all the Saturnian death cults look at Chronos, Father Time, exactly as they see the Grim Reaper. Because in tons of death cults, they love the Grim Reaper archetype. And in a way, they're not lying. The Grim Reaper does come for the carbon. But as Jesus said, we are not of the flesh. We have the flesh, but we are of spirit, and we're not really here to focus on building our treasures here. We're here to like learn what we need to learn, give our thanks and praise, and commit. Yeah. And that whole thing, I think that the love of over amplifying the death component of things from the Saturn death cults all are married to the notion of time. They love to use time as a stress. In fact, I've read Masonic documents that said the number one aspect of human experience that they use is time to stress us.
It's interesting that you mentioned 666 and the cube, right? The cube is the platonic solid of Earth, and tetrahedron is the fire. The octahedron is air. The decahedron is ether. Icosahedron, I said that word wrong the other day, is water. So it seems like cubes are sort of central to all the other platonic solids. And like you said, you kind of have to escape that. But you told me the other day that when you unfold, if you like took a box and unfolded it, it would create like a cross shape, right?
Yeah. That's why I love Dali's Hypercube with Jesus Christ, because he's actually showing the Christ figure. I mean, this is my interpretation. I've never read what the highfalutin people, say about it. I don't care what they have to say about it, in all honesty. My opinion and the way what I'm projecting onto it, that's Christ overcoming time. That's him, like with his sacrifice, he literally transcends all time, which is what I think heaven is. I think the heavenly realm is outside of time. It's not temporal, because it says over and over and over that we come from the eternal, like the heaven is an eternal realm. And so if it is eternal, by definition, it can't be temporal. And so the hypercube, Dali's, I forget the name of the picture, but it shows, what most Christians, understand as, Christ on the cross. But what he did, instead of having it be like a traditional Roman cross, which now we know wasn't like a real, like, who's to say what it actually looked like. But in the time that Dali actually was coming up, people saw the cross as the crucifix, right? And so what he did was anybody can do this at home. The next time you get a box in the mail, when you open that box, you can cut the tape on it and unfold it into a cross. You bring one panel up, and then you fold two panels out, and then you have one panel in the middle and then two panels down. That's 6 sides. And so that was Christ defeating the hypercube through sacrificing his carbon, by sacrificing the aspect of him that bound him to earth. He showed that he had no fear. Like he did have fear, obviously, in the Garden of Gethsemane, but he overcame it. You can't really have courage without fear, but he showed that he overcame his fear and had the courage to actually transcend his physical carbon self. And it's an absolutely, for me, it's a very, very powerful piece of art. I did put it on my Substack. I highlighted it because I thought it was so beautiful.
That is beautiful, actually, man. And you kind of talked about diamagnetism, and I think all of this relates. I'm, obviously going backwards a little bit, but diamagnetism, can you explain that? How electrons sort of repel energy? Like we are diamagnetic, right?
Mm-hmm. Well, no, we're neutral. Men have a net positive charge, means the energy emanates from us. Like it's actually natural for energy to move out from the male body. So the best way to think of it is just the act of coitus between man and woman. You have the energy leaving the man and it's entering the woman. That's just a very easy way to think about it. Negative pulls in and attracts, positive, pushes out and gives. And so in polarity therapy, I'm a practicing polarity therapist. Heterosexual men, their bodies will give off a net positive charge, whereas heterosexual women, they give off a net negative charge. And so, but if you were to actually test their blood pH and all the rest of it, it's always neutral. I'm talking about from an electrical perspective. Diamagnetism is essentially a coherent. It's showing that there's a coherence, that there's a crystalline structure that's involved. So you have three types of magnetism. You have paramagnetism, which is kind of attracting, the magnetic flux from every direction. And because it's attracting from every direction, it's kind of chaotic. And so areas of the world that have a lot of paramagnetic soil, they're more ruled by the moon, because the moon is a very paramagnetic light in the sky. It's the lesser light, like God says, like this is the lesser light. And then you have the diamagnetic light, which is the sun. And the sun rules, areas that have a lot more limestone, things that have more structure, that have much more of a coherence to it. And the coherence causes a direction. So if you take something that's very diamagnetic and you put some sort of flux on it, it's going to send it only in one direction. So I make biochar, and I've made biochar paints, biochar concrete, all these things, and those will block, EMFs, specifically microwave radiation. And it blocks microwave radiation because if I have billions and billions and billions of particles that are all kind of pointing in different directions, whenever that millimeter wave is coming and intercepts that matrix of diamagnetic particles, it just reflects it. There's no way for it to get through. And we find you can kind of take a diamagnetic substance. And by the way, biochar is the most diamagnetic substance that can be made naturally. It's 3 times as diamagnetic as bismuth. And there's tons of microprocessors that will use bismuth where they need diamagnetic switches. So to have carbon get to that point where it's that diamagnetic, and the fact, like I was telling you earlier, it's so porous, like a millimeter wave is never going to get through there. A millimeter wave is going to be bounced in every direction possible. So that's why it's so effective at blocking EMFs. And that's also another reason why it's so good in soil, is because one thing that most people never think about is that the ground takes all the EMF. It literally does. It ends up absorbing that. So imagine 100 years ago, the roots only had to deal with like an AM signal. Now your roots of all your plants are having to deal with your wireless router, your cell phones, like all the returns from the electrical lines, like all of that. So if you encapsulate them with some good biochar, that helps block all that extra noise from getting to the roots of your plants.
Um, this might be a silly question, but like if I painted my walls in this office right now with biochar paint, would all of the electromagnetic energy in here just be bouncing all over the place?
Yeah, you would. I would say it would be bouncing it. It won't act like a Faraday cage in that regard, right? So I was in Gibraltar in 2014, and their top professor on electromagnetism, he had worked for Ericsson, which is like one of the world's biggest telecom companies. He did this test when we were there. I think there was like 40 of us in the room where he was giving his speech on EMF and EMF exposure. And this was like during like Gen 3, like right now we're at 5G. This was like at 3G type of broadcasting. And they were just about to roll out 4G stuff through Europe. And he was like going around trying to tell people how bad it was. And so what he did was he took a singular cell phone. We all had to give our cell phones when we walked into the ballroom. We all like turned our cell phones off. And then he took one cell phone and he put it in a Faraday cage. And then he put all of his EMF testing devices on that. And there was like no ionizing radiation. And then he asked us can we use one more cell phone? Because he wanted to make his point. He brought the other cell phone over and he put it in the Faraday cage with it. And so now you had two cell phones in a single Faraday cage. They both were turned on. Okay. The constructive interference between them trading signals created all of his ionizing, all of his radiation meters were going off the charts. And then when he took them out of the Faraday cage, the chart, it was still showing that it was reading ionizing radiation, but the Faraday cage did amplify. It did hold those signals within it, and it did create more of like a hot box scenario. Biochar is not conductive in the way that most people think it's conductive. So it doesn't create the same hot boxing effect as far as I know. A cohort of mine, Sophia Smallstorm, she's the one that's teaching me how to EMF remediate. And she is a huge, huge proponent of if you do all 6 walls and like you do your 4 walls of your room, your ceiling and your floor with the biochar paint, you absolutely don't bring a signal into the room. One, because it won't work. You won't be able to receive a signal unless you messed up somehow. And 2, you don't want to create that hot boxing scenario, right? So that's the thing is if you are going to go to the trouble of actually creating a space that is EMF free, and I think she's right about this, is that you want that to be the space that you sleep in, the space that you recover in. It's very important to like really limit the electromagnetism that's in that room to the point where like having like a dead switch on even your outlets, just having like a normal, like, a battery clock if you need a clock in that room, but like you don't have the fan going on. Like if you want to be EMF free, because a lot of people don't understand air moving over your body, especially air that's moving over from something that's positively ionizing the air, that sucks electricity out of your body. And it also creates an EMF field. Every single outlet, like if your outlets are dirty, that creates an energy suck. All these things create energy sucks. And then you don't want that to be going on if you went to the trouble of trying to remediate your walls, your ceiling, and your floor.
Makes perfect sense. I thought about that a long time ago whenever I first watched that episode on Tinfoil Hat, like I mentioned. And I think that was the biggest question I had was like, what, I wonder if you trap it. Because I've seen that when people have Teslas, they get like a lot of like that hot boxing almost where it turns them almost red. Because like in this little room I'm in right now, this little office, dude, it's like I got all these lights and cameras and everything pointing at me. And I'll by the end of every episode, my face is really red. It's always red from not because it's hot, because I got the fan on and everything like that. It's I think it's red because of all of the excess electromagnetic energy. And so I'll
Yeah.
literally after an episode, I'll go and I'll just take my shoes off and walk around the yard a little bit.
I would venture to say, and Sophia was bringing this to my attention, and I've seen it in my own life. When I'm grounded and I'm spending more time out in nature, my body normally just sloughs off all the inflammation. And then when I find myself, for whatever reason, inside too much, on the computer too much, giving too much time to screens, being exposed to all the different EMFs that are endemic to indoor spaces now, my body swells up. And it mainly swells up with water weight to protect me. I know it.
Yeah, I mean that's what I feel like is going on with me. Because if I'm out, if I'm doing something, if I don't mess with electronics, if I don't stay on my phone a lot, if I'm working on my laptop, if I'm building a website or something, like I'll get really inflamed as well, and then like I said, I'll have to go outside and empty that back into the earth somehow. But yeah, I was also wondering before I let you go, man. Like taking it back to the biochar. If I was to create a bunch of biochar, I got a few acres of land, and some of this land doesn't grow grass because it's hard clay, and it like basically is super firm. If I created a soil layer that I could lay on top of that, would it still grow grass pretty well in those certain areas?
I mean, you're talking about a ton of biochar.
Yeah, I know. But if I could put it on certain areas, I guess, and I'm not covering the whole yard. It's only like patches that I want to cover and fix patches in my grass.
I've lived in areas of the world where all it is hard packed clay. And we did this system called Hugelkultur, that's a German word, where you essentially take tons of biomass, like fresh biomass, yard clippings, branches, trees, trunks. You lay it on the ground and then you cover it with this clay pack. So like you say you have a friend that has some sort of skid steer and they just scrape off some of this hard pack for you. And then you just lay down all your biomass and then you put that clay over the biomass. You mix in some biochar in there and just let it sit for a year. And what occurs is the microbes go to work and they start to break down all the biomass. And then because the mycelium starts to grow, the mycelium is the only real effective way to get through hard packed soil. I won't even call it soil. I'll call it hard packed clay. Like if you have condensed hard packed clay, you definitely need to add a lot of biomass.
Well, listen, man. I guess I promised that would be the last question, so I guess we should
You can
wrap it
keep
up.
going. You're the one with the time limit, but I don't have
No,
a time limit.
no. I wish I could. Actually, I would literally talk to you for a couple more hours. I got to go get my kids here from school, but I know you got a couple classes coming up, man. Would you like to go ahead and plug those before we get out of here, and any other uh, products or websites or podcasts or anything else you got going on?
Yeah, for everybody that doesn't know, I have a podcast called the Biocharisma Podcast, and you can find that on all the players. I have a nylon cement course that I'm doing for Bearfest 2025 in the Ozarks here of Missouri next week. That's sold out, so there's nothing really to advertise there. But we're going to get into shell theory and domes and things like that. And then at the end of September, let me look it up real quick. I am going to upstate New York for the Biggleson's Academy. They're having from Terra I think it's from Terra Preta to Terra. It's the Bioterrain Conference, September 26th, 27th, and 28th in upstate New York. And I'm really looking forward to that. And I get to rub elbows with Dr. Andrew Kaufman, amongst other like brilliant minds. And I'm really excited about that one. If any of you don't know who the Biggleson brothers are, they are the sons of Harvey Biggleson, who was the gentleman that invented the holographic blood, like looking at the blood and seeing the holograms in the blood. And it's just brilliant. Like their work, I mean, ties together so many aspects of terrain theory along with higher non-allopathic ways of looking at our biology. So that's a conference that I'm doing at, like I said, at the end of September. And yeah, I think those are the two that I have that are coming right up. And if people want biochar, I do sell biochar at topherhq.com. I'm building more up-to-date websites right now. And so that will all get cleaned up probably by the end of the year. But on my antiquated dinosaur of a website, you can order biochar that gets shipped to any of the lower 48 states. And people have been really happy with it. That's been exciting for me. We make it right here in my backyard and we ship it out. My partner and I, and we've had really good results. And one of the things I would like to share real quick is that one of the best results we've had is like feeding it to animals. It really helps animals' health. So if you have chickens or goats or pigs or anything like that, it's really good for them. So if anybody wants any more information on that, they can contact me through my website.
Awesome. Yeah, and he's got a great Substack as well. It's biocharisma.substack.com. You find him, like you said, at topherhq.com. Topher, thank you very much for joining me, buddy. I appreciate this. I'm sorry we had to record this again. So hopefully we can do it again sometime, man.
Point me in the right direction. God send me your blessing. I'm so tired of stressing. This music's turned to obsession. I got a long way to go to ease my pain. My clothes soaking wet, mixed with sweat and the rain. Going half insane. Wishing I could change all my mistakes, but y'all be half gone if all y'all had seen the things that I saw. Hallucinating from the alcohol, hoping I can stop my own fall. Gotta stand tall, overcome the sin. Walking down the dirt road, singing church hymns. Oh dear Lord, oh dear Lord. Well, I'm standing at the crossroads. I don't know where to go. I'm losing control. Trying not to seal my soul. I'm standing at the crossroads. I don't know where to go. I'm losing control. Trying not to seal my soul. I'm sitting back thinking about the memories. Now I don't know who's a friend to me. These people act like they can to me. Well, that's still a mystery. Devil wants me to lose my religion, but I won't stop, not without a fight. I won't give in. So I'm gonna sit down right here and pray and ask the Lord above to help me change my way. Today the world's filled with greed, envy, and hate. You're moving too fast, apply pressure to the brake. You can love me or hate, I'll bend but don't break. I'm at the crossroads,